I called off my wedding in front of everyone because they mocked my late mother. I never thought I'd be the kind of man who'd walk away from the woman he loved in front of 100 people, but that's exactly what I did. And if you knew the whole story, you'd understand why. My name is Matthew. I'm 33, and until recently, I was engaged to a woman named Lydia. For a long time, I thought she was my forever. We met 6 years ago at a summer cookout hosted by some mutual friends. It wasn't love at first sight, but it was close. Lydia had this bright, easy laugh that seemed to pull everyone toward her. She was witty without trying, charming without forcing it. I remember thinking, this is the kind of woman you build a life with. We spent years growing together. Vacations, family holidays, late-night drives where we talked about our dreams and fears. By the 5th year, I was sure she was it. So, when I proposed last year, on a quiet fall evening under the oak tree in my backyard, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. She cried, said yes, and hugged me so tight I thought my ribs might break. For a while, it felt like we were unstoppable. We started planning the wedding, looking at venues, tasting cakes. I was genuinely excited, not just for the ceremony, but for the life we were about to start together. But love has a strange way of making you overlook the cracks. The little red flags you tell yourself don't matter. For me, those cracks were named Jack and Donna, Lydia's parents. When I first met them, I thought they were just loud and opinionated. The kind of people who loved to dominate a conversation. They had this way of being the center of attention without even trying. At first, I figured it was harmless. Not everyone's parents are warm and soft-spoken, right? But over time, I realized it wasn't just personality. Their comments weren't playful. They were sharp, cutting, and the edges, they were usually aimed at me. It started small. Jokes about me coming from a simpler background, little digs about how lucky I was to be marrying someone like Lydia. But as the wedding got closer, those jokes turned into patterns I couldn't ignore. Every interaction seemed to have a sting hidden inside it. What hurt most wasn't just their words. It was Lydia's silence. Every time her parents made one of those comments, I waited for her to speak up, to defend me, to say, hey, that's not fair. But she never did. Sometimes she'd even laugh along, like it was all in good fun. I told myself it didn't matter, that once the wedding was over, things would settle down. That love was enough to weather a few storm clouds. But I was wrong, because what I didn't know then was that those cracks were about to split wide open, in front of everyone we knew, and force me to make a choice I never imagined I'd have to make. If this story were only about me and Lydia, maybe things could have been different, but it wasn't. It was also about my mom, Patricia. My mom wasn't just a parent. She was my anchor, my moral compass, the one person I could count on no matter how bad life got. She raised me alone after my dad left when I was 7. She worked 2 jobs, days at a small-town bank and nights cleaning offices, just to keep food on the table. And somehow, through all that exhaustion, she still managed to show up for me. Soccer games, school plays, late-night talks when I couldn't sleep, she never missed a single one. But what truly made my mom remarkable wasn't just how hard she worked. It was how she gave. To everyone. When a neighbor's car broke down, she drove them to work for a week without expecting gas money. When a family at church couldn't afford groceries, she left bags of food on their porch anonymously. She had this quiet way of helping, like she believed kindness didn't need an audience. And when it came to Lydia's family, my mom gave more than anyone could have expected. Years ago, before Lydia and I were even serious, her parents' restaurant was hanging by a thread. Jack and Donna were drowning in debt. Suppliers were threatening to cut them off. Banks wouldn't lend them another dime. That's when my mom, who didn't have much herself, stepped in. She co-signed a loan so they wouldn't lose everything. She spent weekends helping them reorganize their books, even paid for a new industrial oven outright when theirs broke down mid-service. That oven saved their business, kept their doors open when they were days away from shutting down. And it didn't stop there. When Lydia's older brother Ryan couldn't afford his last semester of college, my mom quietly wrote the check. She told me later, education's the one thing no one can take away from you. She never asked for repayment, never even brought it up. That's who she was. Someone who helped because it was right, not because she wanted credit. But you wouldn't know any of that from how Jack and Donna talk about her now. 2 years ago, cancer took my mom. 3 brutal years of chemo and hospital visits, and then she was gone. Losing her shattered me. She wasn't just my mother, she was my lifeline. And when she died, the world went quiet in a way I can't even describe. Lydia was there through it, at least physically. She held my hand at the funeral, sat beside me at the gravesite. But even then, I sensed something missing. Whenever I talked about my mom, Lydia seemed distant, uncomfortable. When we started planning the wedding, I suggested including a small tribute to my mom during the vows, maybe a candle or a line in the program. Lydia shut it down instantly. Isn't that going to make people sad? Weddings are supposed to be happy. That stung. But I let it go. Like I'd let so many things go. I kept telling myself love was enough, that once the wedding was behind us, we'd start fresh. I didn't realize I was standing on a fault line, and the rehearsal dinner was about to split it wide open. The night of the rehearsal dinner, I knew something felt off before we even walked through the door. Lydia barely spoke to me on the drive there, scrolling through her phone, answering with short yeahs and ahas whenever I tried to make small talk. My stomach was already in knots, but I kept telling myself, it's just nerves. Weddings make everyone stressed. When we pulled up to the restaurant, my chest tightened. It was over-the-top fancy. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, waiters in black suits gliding between tables. Jack and Donna stood at the entrance like royalty greeting their court, shaking hands and basking in compliments. Inside, the imbalance hit me like a brick. 90% of the room was Lydia's family and her parents' business associates. My side, my dad, my sister, and 2 close friends. That was it. I swallowed the lump in my throat and tried to smile. Get through tonight, I told myself. Tomorrow, it's just us. Dinner was stiff, polite. The food looked expensive, but tasted like nothing. Every laugh from Lydia's side of the room felt like it was at my expense. Then Jack stood up, tapped his glass with a fork, and cleared his throat. Welcome, everyone, he boomed, grinning like he owned the place. Tonight we celebrate the union of our beautiful daughter, Lydia, and of course, Michael. He said my name like it left a bad taste in his mouth. The speech started harmless enough. Stories about Lydia's childhood, her drive to succeed, her high standards. But every compliment about her was paired with a dig at me. She's always aimed high, Jack smirked. Though I suppose she's finally found someone to keep her grounded. Polite chuckles rippled through the room. My face burned. Donna took the mic next. Lydia's always been patient, she said sweetly. And it looks like she'll need that patience in marriage too. Laughter. I glanced at Lydia, waiting for her to shut it down. She didn't. She laughed along. I clenched my fists under the table. My dad's jaw tightened. My sister crossed her arms, glaring at the head table. And then Jack stood again. His voice rang out cheerful, almost theatrical. Before we wrap up, he said, let's acknowledge someone who isn't here tonight. Patricia, Michael's mother. For a split second, I thought maybe he'd surprise me. Maybe he'd say something kind. He didn't. She certainly had strong opinions, didn't she? He chuckled. Always inserting herself, always taking charge. Generous woman, maybe too generous if we're being honest. Donna chimed in, smiling. Oh, she loved to help even when no one asked. More laughter, at my mother's expense. Something inside me snapped. My chair screeched as I stood. The room fell silent. Are you serious right now? My voice shook, low and sharp. Donna blinked. Michael, it was just a joke. I cut her off. You spent the entire night taking cheap shots at my mom, the woman who saved your business, paid your son's tuition, bailed you out, and you think that's funny? Jack smirked, arms crossed. Relax, kid. You're overreacting. Overreacting? I stepped closer. You called her meddling. You mocked her generosity like it was a flaw. And Lydia, I turned to her. You laughed. Her face flushed red. I didn't know they were going to, but you laughed. Whispers rippled across the room. My dad stood halfway out of his seat. My sister glared daggers at Donna. Jack straightened. If you're so offended, maybe you should leave. I took a breath, looked at Lydia, at her parents, at the strangers who were about to become my family. No, I said, voice steady. I'm not leaving. I'm calling this off. Gasps. This wedding is over. A week after I called off the wedding, I thought the worst was behind me. My phone had finally gone silent. No more desperate texts from Lydia, no more guilt trips from Jack and Donna. For the first time in months, I could breathe. I spent that weekend cleaning out my apartment, putting away wedding plans, boxing up things that reminded me of her. That's when I opened the small wooden box I kept on the top shelf of my closet, the one that held my mom's keepsakes. Inside were her favorite earrings, a folded church program from her memorial service, and a delicate gold locket. That locket had been in my family for generations, passed from mother to child. My mom gave it to me before she died. One day, she'd whispered, voice weak but steady, "You'll know the right person to give this to." But when I opened the box, the locket was gone. At first, I thought I'd misplaced it. I tore my apartment apart. Drawers, shelves, even under the bed. Nothing. My chest tightened. There was only one person who'd been in my apartment since I last saw that locket. Lydia. 3 days after the breakup, she'd come by to return the engagement ring. She'd asked to use the bathroom before she left. I didn't think twice about it then. Now, it all made sense. My hands were shaking as I texted her. "Me, did you take my mom's locket?" "What are you talking about?" I gritted my teeth. "Me, you're the only one who's been here. Where is it?" Minutes passed before my phone buzzed again. "Lydia, I borrowed it. I just wanted to keep a piece of her with me." Borrowed, without asking. I grabbed my keys and drove straight to her parents' house. The entire ride, anger roared in my chest, hotter than anything I'd felt at the rehearsal dinner. Calling off the wedding had been one thing, but this? Taking something sacred? It felt like spitting on my mom's grave. Donna opened the door with her trademark fake smile. "Michael," she said softly, "what are you?" "Where's the locket?" My voice was low, controlled, but my hands were fists at my sides. Her smile faltered. "Locket? Don't play dumb," I snapped. "Lydia has it. I'm not leaving without it." Footsteps creaked on the stairs. Lydia appeared, eyes swollen and red, holding the locket between her fingers. "Here," she whispered, stepping toward me. I snatched it, my thumb brushing over the familiar engraving. My chest tightened, relief, anger, heartbreak all at once. "You stole from me?" I said quietly. "From my mom." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I didn't mean to. I just wanted something to remember her by." "Stop." My voice cracked, sharper than I intended. "You mocked her memory. You stood by while your parents humiliated her. And now this. You don't get to claim her." Her mouth opened, closed. No words came out. I pocketed the locket and turned toward the door. "Michael, please," she choked. "We can fix this." I paused, hand on the knob without looking back. "No," I said. "We can't." And I walked out. Walking out of that house with the locket in my pocket felt different than walking out of the rehearsal dinner. That night, my anger had burned so hot, I could barely think straight. But this time, it was quiet, heavy, final. I didn't speed home. I didn't slam the door behind me. I just drove, mile after mile on an empty road, headlights carving tunnels through the dark. For the first time in months, my phone sat silent in the passenger seat. No buzzing, no pleading texts, no guilt trips, just silence. And strangely, it felt like peace. When I got back to my apartment, I set the locket on the table and stared at it for a long time. My mom's face flashed in my mind, the way she used to laugh, the way she'd say, "Do the right thing, even when it's hard." Calling off the wedding had been hard. Walking away from someone I'd once pictured a future with had been harder. But letting Lydia and her family keep disrespecting my mom? That would have been impossible. In the days that followed, I blocked every number connected to Lydia and her parents, deleted the messages, took down the photos from the walls. It was like cleaning a wound, painful at first, but necessary if I ever wanted to heal. People talked, of course. Rumors spread through mutual friends. Some said I overreacted. Some called me brave. But for the first time, I didn't care what anyone thought. I wasn't living my life to prove anything to Jack, Donna, or even Lydia. I was living it to honor my mom and to reclaim myself. It's been months now. The pain isn't gone, but it's quieter. I still catch myself reaching for the phone some days, almost out of habit. Then I look at that locket, shining softly on my nightstand, and I remember why I did it. I chose self-respect. I chose to protect the memory of the woman who raised me. And I chose to believe that somewhere down the line, there's a version of love that won't ask me to sacrifice the people who made me who I am. If you've ever been in a relationship that asked too much of you, that chipped away at your values, your dignity, maybe you'll understand. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't holding on. It's letting go. And if you're lucky, letting go becomes the first step toward healing. If this story touched you, consider following. I share stories like this every week. Stories that remind us we're not alone in what we've been through.